Hello, everybody. Welcome to Simulation Talk 348. Guru, how are you, my brother? So good to see you. We'll start our Discord stage. There we go. Stage is up. Thank you so much for the notifications. I appreciate it. Bigfoot is in the house on TikTok. How are you? TMJ. Brett. No, entirely just dark, and I kind of but I did not want to bed experience. I'm reading some of the comments right now on Discord. Interesting. Okay. All right. Interesting. Okay. Thank you so much, Guru, for sharing the chat. Welcome, everybody, to Simulation Talk 348. Dong Ferrari. Good to see you. Jess, Jeremiah, Golden Crystal, William, Tiff. All right. Slowly, people are trickling in. Surprise live. Frame of Mind, how are you? James, Yoni. Jessica's in the house. How everybody feeling? Phone M Productions. How are you? Okay. If you guys want to follow from Twitch, it's LaserX83. Again, Twitch is LaserX83. If you go and follow from there, will be very beneficial for the channel. Much appreciated. How was you guys' week? Are you ready for the new week? Let's get into it. Wonderful, wonderful new day. And just going to remind everybody, I want to encourage more conversations revolving around human experience. What it's like to be you. Is it good? Is it bad? How come? Why? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about all the conditions that make it good or bad and how we can make it better from the perspective of who we are and beyond. Woohoo! The beastness is in the house. Brother, I'm always so happy. You're in Miami? Bro, you're close. You're close to me. What's in Miami? You're the second person telling me that they're there. Is there a convention or something of awesome people? James is saying, yesterday you answered my question regarding the Agripen trilemma. Oh, trilemma. Thank you. Today I'd like to ask you about the tetralemma. Do you know it? I do not know it, but I'm sure you'll tell me. Power off is in the house. How are you? This week has been in a very dimension exploring frame of mind. Well, I love that. What up, Nathan? Thank you so much for the likes. If you are joining from anywhere, any streaming platform, any platform, please like the live. The algorithms love that. Ooh, I needed that. Mikael, how are you doing? Art Basil? Wait, what happened to Sofa King? I hope everyone is well. Tash and I are currently at the airport. One of her babies was having seizures. Oh no, so she had to cut her trip short. That is crazy. Wait, how did she leave babies? Or you mean like one of her dogs? What is babies? I'm sorry to hear this. Hopefully everything's gonna be okay. Sending love and nothing but good things. But wait, seriously, how did she leave the babies behind? If it's like actual babies. Guru, thank you so much for being on top of it. Much appreciated. Thank you for the likes. Much appreciated, Nathan. Anita Mood. Having tinnitus this week. Is that typical of expanding perspective? You know, the ringing can be associated with certain things changing in an interesting way. Is this something that comes and goes? 3-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old son. Oh, wow. Her youngest is having seizure. Oh, wow. Did this happen before? Or this is like just now started happening? There's been a lot of weird stuff going on with almost like feels like a spiritual attack of some sort. But yeah, what is this something that was happening to them before? This week only. I'm telling you, a lot of big things are happening. Transforming. John, how are you? Nico, how are you doing, my brother? Scared of little McCultra. What is McCultra? How are you, Nico?
Doing well. I was just listening to Michael Levin and Lex Friedman.
It's on my list, thanks to you. What is it specifically that you feel that was really
good, man? They're all over the place, but it's like very relevant to 0 to 1 and just everything. Heart palm of consciousness and intelligence and etc. The whole thing.
So what is okay? And what would you say is the latest point that you heard that you thought was like extra relevant?
I like the way that he's approaching kind of biology from a top-down perspective. So he's looking at electrical circuits and the algorithms of biological systems. And I think it's really cool because I think the rest of I think biologists are typically trained to take things from like a molecular biology point of view, so like a bottom-up approach. But one thing that he said, which was really fascinating, is like if you're a biologist and you're studying kind of like organisms, but you're ignoring consciousness, then you're really missing a big kind of component, right? Because he feels like consciousness isn't just this thing that happens within your brain; it's your whole body coming together. And I thought that was really fascinating because you would only have that perspective if you're approaching it from the top down, not from the bottom up.
Yeah. Top down, in other words, seeing what we already see on our level and then extrapolating from that. Thank you, Nathan.
Yeah, like I think a lot of biologists will say like, well, you have proteins interacting, like, we built a model of the cell, right? That's where we're at today. And now we're starting to understand how cells and cells interact. And then from there, we'll form tissues. And from tissues, you can form organs. And then from organs, you can get a picture of like the physiology of an organism. But he just went from like consciousness to how the entire system behaves from bioelectricity, not from your brain alone, but also throughout your organs and throughout your nervous system. And it's really cool. I like that perspective a lot.
Yeah, I do think that there's something to be said about consciousness being the binding force of an organism. It's essentially the thing that knows, the field out of which what the organism arises comes from. I will definitely watch this conversation. Also, Terry is saying, left again. Just started again after the leftover. Leftover? Off and on seizures since last year. Oh, man. There's all kinds of things happening, huh? Okay, well, hopefully everything's going to be okay. Where are they staying with? I like to think tonight is the high-end resonance of your heart as a sonic resonance, but also in sending and receiving. Okay. I've been having it for CPL weeks now. Somebody help me. What is CPL? But it's not in my ears. It's in my head. Interesting. like multi-pitch tones that change. Maybe something is you're moving through different frequencies. The tetralemma. The tetralemma represents the four truth variables: true, false, both, neither. Okay. Nagarjuna created it to show that truth cannot be logically arrived at or defined as. All four lead to paradoxes. Do you also? No, I strongly reject this perspective. That'll be my short answer. So strongly reject this perspective. I think it's nonsensical. I think it was designed by people who wanted to sound mysterious, but it makes zero sense. And I don't think it's a position that can ever be defended in any reasonable sense. And if the retort to that from people is, no, it's like you gotta have to just accept it. Well, that's not how we go about things. Things are either are or they are not. And to say that they're both and neither is really neither or. It's neither and neither. And we can go through every single example, but I would claim that in every single example you're going to try and create this, what you're going to arrive at is that the reason that it seemed that there might be some superposition of the thing or whatever it is, it has to do with a limited perspective, not with an ultimate state of affairs. So yeah, I would not agree at all with these, even not just with this statement, with any statement that tries to pass for wisdom when it's just nonsense. It's kind of like statements, by the way, these exist in science as well. Here's an example of one in science. If you think you understand quantum physics, you don't understand quantum physics. Okay. Then why are you studying it? Oh, CPL couple got it.
But I think the way that they used understand was like, can you build an intuitive understanding of it? Like because like, for instance, like a basketball player has a very intuitive model of Newtonian mechanics when they shoot their ball, right?
Yep.
But like in quantum mechanics, like there is no intuition. It's all just shut up and calculate and let it run. So that's why I think they meant that. But I'm wondering if like the Gödel's incompleteness theorem, where it's like it is what it is. Like there are some things you just can't prove.
So that's my point. So these statements are simply misplaced. So what they're really about is people basically saying stop trying. That's it. So then then you can stop trying. But all the people that are trying, don't tell them that there's no way to know. It's like it's very simple. Step aside, basically. Then, and also we might wanna consider when these kind of statements are made. They're made to denote an attitude, not really. They're not truth claims. They're virtue signaling. They're basically saying, look, I'm humble enough to admit this thing. But nobody seriously thinks this, right? So like the fact that you are trying to study the thing just shows that you wouldn't be studying the thing if you thought there was nothing to be known about it. And ultimately, you can, of course, admit that there are certain ways in which nature presents itself that are extremely unintuitive to us. But that's not the same as to say, again, depending on how the statement is used. Currently, this statement is kind of repeated as a trope to denote, kind of like to shake people up and say, hey, the basically to kind of shake the delusion you might have that after a few reads of whatever it is that you're trying to understand, you understand it, right? Even the smartest people, basically it's saying, look, even the smartest people saying They even said that if you understand it, it means you don't understand it, right? But if you really,
what if someone said, if you think you understand the psychedelic space, you don't understand the psychedelic space?
I will not accept it. You can say what you understand, but like to say and like, what do you mean?
Or what about this?
Yeah.
If you think you've achieved enlightenment, you haven't achieved enlightenment.
I also disagree with that. I think that people who achieved enlightenment know it. And in fact, there's a whole movement of people now that are kind of like are sick with these things, and they're saying, "No, I am enlightened." And I know how it sounds, but they're like, "But sorry, but I am." Like, I'm not. This is not a competition, but like, here's how you can do it. But if you're not going to be talking, so there's a, we want. I'm really careful with how I'm using my language here. We really want to be the kind of person that values humility. And I'm saying we really want because most of us, truthfully, don't value it as much as we would like. But we do everything we can to act that way because in our minds, if we don't signal that we value it, it somehow demotes us in some decision space of somebody. And it might, but in reality, most people, when push comes to shove, when it actually matters, like it really matters, people care much less about humility than they care about competence. Because competence puts you at ease. Who do you want on your team? Somebody who's competent or someone who's humble? Always competent. Always. Every single time. And that is even if the absolute opposite of humble. And if you really think about it, like if you really think about it, what is the value of humility? What is it actually? It's just show that you understand your limitations. You can do it without saying it to anyone. You can just do it. So the second you express that or say things to hint at that, you are virtue signaling. And I would say that all of these claims are either attempts to sound mysterious or like it's both and neither and okay. Step aside. Because you're no longer trying to actually solve any problem, and that's okay. You're just doing something else, but then you're no longer participating in this thing that we're doing here. And anybody is free to step aside, and everybody is free to drop the problem. And of course, you are free to say that this problem ultimately will not make us happy, which might even be true. But what is dishonest is to pretend as if you're so deeply plugged in and then you're going to be it's basically the ultimate trump card. It's like you're saying, look, I've been through the whole thing and I'm telling you there's nothing to see there. Well, maybe you didn't find it. Like, what the audacity, you know what I mean? It's actually claiming to know something you can't possibly claim to know under the banner of some kind of a fake humility that is really just virtue signaling. That's why I find these things are completely useless. It doesn't add any information and it doesn't give you any insights, these kind of claims. Both and neither. What does that mean? No, you can't have both and neither. It's either both or neither, but you can't have both and neither. What you can have is you can have both and neither, maybe going back and forth, but then it's not both and neither. It's both now and neither later. There's no situation in which you can, in any shape or form, describe a world in which it's both and neither, because the concepts negate each other by their own definition. To say, as Terence used to point out, by the way, this is one of these things that I would strongly disagree with Terence on, by the way. It pointed out, he's like, these substances, these psychedelics, they're basically, what is it called? Something oppositorum, like in Latin, like it's denoting the fact that it's both itself and not itself, right? Again, these concepts, they're kind of designed to stretch your mind and its thinking. But when you really go down to it, like the actual, no, that's not a thing. Like it's not really a thing. It's designed to stretch your thinking, help you develop stronger thinking chops, but it's not really, you're not talking about anything of substance, and it's not really informing anything aside from very unique cases in which you're talking about some very deep philosophical conundrums in which it's interesting to invoke these kind of concepts. But no, I don't think these things are relevant to any reasonable conversation about progress of anything. There you go. Let's see some of the comments. In quantum mechanics, there can be a superposition of true and false, but this is not the same as something being both true and false on either. Yes, and I would say that even in quantum mechanics, whatever you claiming to be true or false, let's say a particle that is, both in a superposition of, well, there's actually macro states that they managed to achieve in which is both oscillating and not oscillating. Eventually, when we do get to a more complete, mature science, we will see that from a particular perspective, we will see that how this kind of state does make sense and why our previous view of it seeming to be both at the same time was just a product of our limited perception from that vantage point. Always it will be the case. One of my favorite quotes that I have no idea who uttered it originally, and I'm sure there were like versions of this, but reality has no paradoxes. You just have a misunderstanding, something along those lines. So like reality doesn't have any paradoxes because it works. Paradox, and by the way, what most people describe as paradoxes, they're not even paradoxes. Like true paradoxes are like just the universe is a paradox. The fact that it has to either come from nothing, which is what does that even mean? And then why would nothing become something? Like those are paradoxes, okay? But even that, obviously, they exist. So therefore, somehow the whole thing somehow unfolded, right? So its existence is telling you that there is no paradox. There's just a limited perspective or limited perception. That's always the case.
I feel like that's the same thing as saying that our universe is Turing complete.
Why is it the same?
Because you could re-simulate an exact replica of our universe in a smaller form without like a paradox, without like a bug or like a jam in your code, right? You can re-emerge all of the phenomenons that we have.
Oh, you're saying like it wouldn't execute if it would have a bug in it?
Yeah, like I feel like a paradox would be like where logic is incomputable, right? Where there's like this bug where it's like, I'm stuck. Like that's what I feel like a paradox is. But
well, a paradox is supposed to be just a thing,
egg, right? Is that a paradox?
Not really. No, a paradox is more like, well, I mean, a lot of people use it in different ways, but the way that I would think of paradox in its most primordial kind of conceptual framework is it's a thing that must be that can't be. That would be a paradox. So it's a thing that must be because let's say it is, so you know it is, and yet everything about it tells you that it can't be. There's no way that it can, and yet it is. That's a paradox. So it's like, how can a thing that can't be, and yet it does, and then it is somehow? That's a true paradox. Most things that people call paradoxes, they're not paradoxes at all. Like not even a little bit. Like they're not actually self-negating. They're just clearly some misperceived state, obviously, right? In physics, this is very common. But there are true paradoxes, like logical paradoxes, that, and the universe would definitely is a prime example of this. The universe is an impossible thing that exists. And I do mean impossible. It should not be possible. Because it's like, if there was nothing, there should be nothing. And if there was something out of nothing, then what was in the nothing that caused the something? But there was nothing. And then people go bend over backwards like Lawrence Krauss and saying, well, the nothing we thought about is not what you thought it was. Well, no, then it's not nothing, which is fine. Totally agreeing. Like, yeah, there's some state that we now, if we can have any either even theoretical or obviously better if we can have some experimental access to it. But if you have access to some kind of a primordial state that you can describe, that's better than better than nothing. It's better than what you currently have, but it's not nothing. And then if you want to say nothing is impossible, then again, what will be waiting for you at the end of that conundrum is the container problem. Because then I'm going to say, okay, that primordial state of just pure randomness, whatever it is, the quantum foam, whatever you want to call it, why that? That's not nothing. Why is that there? And then the answer is like, well, it's just there. Well, okay. Well then, but then you're not trying to answer the question anymore. It's just like you just accepted that it's just there. That's what this is. Okay, so you see that right there? That is a paradox. Because what? How? But it is. But what? How can it be? It's a snake that eats its own tail forever. It's like what? Ah, that's a paradox. Like it's just like really ask, like really, it's where your brain breaks when you like you truly like you sit there and it's not just it's so clear to you that the reason your brain breaks, it's not just the limitation of your brain, it's the limitation of the universe to ever contain a state of apprehension of that at all. Like the apprehension of that cannot exist, just like the universe can't, because it always was. And then what does that even mean? Okay, that's a paradox. That's why the universe is a paradox. And people say things. There's always, I love the people who like say things like, for example, when you're saying, you speak however incredibly or mind-blowingly about the paradox of infinite universe that always existed. It's also a form of a paradox and then some people say, well, you don't understand. It's just the limitation of your mind to perceive infinity. Sure, but what other points of reference you can ever take? Like it's yes, we have things that begin and end, and therefore our minds develop these ability, the kind of like perception of the world and intuitions that it has. But if there is a mind in existence that perceives anything at all, it's clearly also perceiving things that currently reality is not doesn't have just available to you. So and then we, in our ability to perceive these things that are not currently animated out of the laws of physics, we then produce things that previously were not happening. So we're clearly bringing something into existence by using this weird tool of imagination and thinking, and then it produces things in the universe, in the physical universe, that previously didn't exist, like materials that can't just happen because they require engineering. But we are an object in the universe, so whatever we are is doing this other thing that the universe is currently not doing. And if you are looking through the lens of that other thing that seems to be that unique, then there has to be some importance to it, or at least some ability to it that matters, right? Literally and figuratively. And then through that tool, you are thinking about these possibilities. So the tool would have limitations, and obviously existence doesn't, otherwise existence couldn't be. But still, you don't get to just say, well, it's just the limitation of the mind, because even with the limitations of the mind is producing things in existence that weren't possible before. So thinking about it has value. Trying to come at these problems has value. It's, David Deutsch, the way he defines bad philosophy is not one that is wrong. It's one that in its core ideation, it's trying to block other philosophies or other ways of thought. So the second you have any philosophy that says X is impossible, stop trying, that's a bad philosophy, because it basically negates some kind of an attempt at progress. It just says, no, that just doesn't make any sense. That's it. The observer effect, I would say it's a paradox. You mean in physics? There is no real observer effect, so there's no paradox. That's one of the most misconceived.
So
Yeah.
I really think that I know what you mean, like the statement of if you think you understand quantum mechanics, you don't. I think that at the time, I'm giving a benefit of the doubt, and maybe I'm biased because I love Feynman, and he was someone that did say this. I do think it was kind of like maybe at that time, I guess maybe it was like the equivalent of like someone coming on the live and saying, "I understand. I've solved the hard problem of consciousness," right?
Yeah.
And then I can imagine you saying, if you think you've solved the hard problem of consciousness, you haven't solved the hard problem, or you don't understand.
I would never say it. I would say here are my parameters for what solving the hard problem of consciousness would look like, which is what I've been doing in the last few lives. I'm saying you have to come up with the
Yeah.
principle first. Before you start convincing me that here's how you achieve the principle, first show me that you even know there's a principle that you can use. If you can't show me this, then we're wasting our time. Because then I know that whatever you're doing, you're not trying to solve it. Because you're doing something else. You either got confused or like there's something happened, but like you either don't understand what the hard problem of consciousness is. Like if you can't produce this first description of how you're going to go about it, which has to, in every explanation there's always the summation of what you're going to do before you even start doing it. You should be able to do it, otherwise you have no idea what you did, or you didn't understand what you were set out to do. Does that make sense? Or
Yeah, I see what you're saying, and you're right. You're very tolerant of that proposition from people.
yeah, it's just that I don't think it's promising unless they know what the path is. And because they usually what people do is that they go on this enormous roundabout. I just read enough books on the subject, and what people and then you start identifying the way that most people lose their path, and it's almost always the same. What they do is they basically go on a really long trip, and they don't tell you how they're gonna do it. They just go on this trip, so there's nothing to track. So if I give you the principle, then at every step of the way, I don't have to think about the entire chain of causation you just presented to me, which is very difficult to do because it's like very long. What I get to do in every step of the way, if you did present to me the way you're going to do it, so the principle, I can just refer to the principle in any point in your arguments and say, is this block where we're here right now represent a potential step in this principle? And if not, then I can just say, okay, well, this step doesn't make any sense. Let's go back to the previous step. Does this one make sense? And so on and so forth. You always have to have this tracking mechanism. And what happens to people is that they go on this enormous roundabout, and it's like a frog that is being boiled, in this case, in bullshit. It just slowly boils in bullshit. And then you just basically can just kind of like slowly get more and more comfortable with ideas that some are kind of like don't necessarily have anything directly to do with the question asked. Some are just maybe auxiliary or sound kind of cool, or and then they kind of lose themselves in the thing, and then eventually they just sprinkle a little bit of a, and this is where magic happens, and the end of story. That's basically it's exactly how it happened in being the book Being Me or Being You by Anil Seth. Very good read, well written. He's a very known researcher, cognitive researcher, but he does the same thing. He basically, the punchline at the end is that he equates consciousness with things like temperature. It's a property that is the result of other things happening, which again, we could have just skipped the whole book and say, well, this argument doesn't run because of the same thing that I'm saying about wetness of water. The wetness of water and the heat and the coolness of temperature is already that to an already existing conscious unit. But you're set out to explain the conscious unit. So you already begged the question. You already you basically injected, you asserted that there's already a conscious agent experiencing it. And then it's just a circular argument. Well, yeah, I think I cut you off. I think you're about to say something.
No, it's good.
Instead of the universe not making sense, It's just similar, recursive, and endlessly expanding inwards and outwards. Sure, but these are descriptions of things you might think the universe is doing. Those are not explanations, DJ. That's exactly my point. That by saying things like this, you're just saying general kind of generalities about existence that might be or might not be true, but they're not the explanation. That's not what an explanation looks like. An explanation is literally step-by-step walkthrough of how the engine works. And again, I'm very open to the move saying, I don't think that's knowable for any agent inside of existence. Totally respect that. Then just say that, and that's the end of that conversation. Then we're no longer together trying to understand it, because you said it is impossible for an agent inside of existence to understand it, and that's a legitimate move and might even be true. I just think that in the process of trying, new and interesting things will arise in such a way that is novel. So, like, if you wouldn't be trying to answer that particular question, these new and interesting new things would not arise. So, just for the sake of these new and interesting things arising, I think it's worth keep asking that question, with the full admission that most likely no one in existence will truly ever know. And then the question is like, well, why even try? Has an answer. Why still try? Well, because by trying, new and interesting things arise without without that question, they wouldn't arise. That would be the best kind of general argument about that, I would say. Is the only way to study lasers doing the experiment? As far as we know right now, Nova, yes, but we are working on potential ways that will not involve, the other things. Hopefully we can come up with that. Ebony's in the house. How you doing, Ebony? She's here until tomorrow evening. They couldn't make the flight soon enough, so that's actually a good thing for me, but not for the babies. It is sad, and we're sending them a lot of love, brother. What up, Deuce Wayne? Man, I miss you, DJ. Can't wait to come and hang in Nashville again. And again, just a reminder, if you guys want to follow on Twitch, it's LaserX83 on Twitch. LaserX83. Consciousness is non-local. Ebony just gifted 5 memberships. Ebony, you're an angel. Thank you for the donation, and say thank you to Ebony, everybody, if you got the membership. Much appreciated. This will also give you access to our weekly lives for members only, which are coming up, so it's going to be a lot of fun. What do you think happens when we die? Do we reincarnate? I think reincarnation is a good model. The short answer is I have no idea. I don't know. A reincarnation could be different levels of simulation. Absolutely. There was a question that I was just reading and it jumped from it. And I think it was a good question. Let me try and find it. In the idea of consciousness, is there a possibility that we aren't the only observers through our eyes? Meaning, could there be observer observing through our eyes at the same time as we are? Yes, that's a great question. Absolutely. You might share eyes with larger and different entities that are also borrowing from your experience. Yes, absolutely. That's a very interesting question and a good one. Non-locality can always be described by adding extra dimensions. Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. This one nails it on the head. And actually, that's probably the most succinct way of saying it. So thank you for this, Gooby. Boxton 8526. I'm going to repeat it again. Non-locality can always be described by adding extra dimensions. Boom, solved. It is absolutely true. You can explain non-locality by postulating that it's not non-local, it's just local in a higher plane. It's local to itself. It's combined from a vantage point of a perspective on a plane you have no access to. What up, Random? And wait, I want to find that question again. Let me go back. I lost it because it jumped. Something about if how can we describe consciousness if it's I think the question was I can't see it, but the question was something along the lines of if consciousness is non-local, how we can describe such a thing, which is a great question. Well, it's an interesting question because of this difference that we're talking about. What up, Angelic? What Angelica White? It's an interesting question because it rests the answer to it rests on what's so different about consciousness. The question, how can we describe it? It's a great question because we might not be able to, but we don't need to describe it to establish it in full, which is what is unique to consciousness. That you don't need to describe it to know it's real because you already have it. It's that kind of a thing. The fact that you have it is all you need to know it's there. That's it. The knowing, the seeming of something happening is what consciousness is. Therefore, you can kind of describe it to one another, but you don't need to. Like if you're saying, well, if you can't describe it to me, how do you know it exists? That's not, it doesn't matter. I don't need to describe it to you. I already have it. It's this, whatever this is. Can we consciously exist without our bodies? I think it has to, again, these are great questions today. Awesome, Mr. White. Can we consciously exist without our bodies? I think it's a great question because it's an open question, and I think the answer to it really matters. It might be the case that you have to be instantiated in some form because you have to have a boundary of a sort to point to and from. But maybe I would say my intuition tells me, I don't know, of course, but my intuition tells me that you can't be an agent. So in order to be an agent, you have to be instantiated in some form, and not necessarily in a physical body, but you have to have some boundary of some sort. Because I would define an agent as some conscious unit existing within in an environment that is differentiates itself in some other form other than the physical form. So it has abstraction potential that can execute at the same time. There has to be some kind of computational software process that is happening in addition to whatever form it embodies. But I think the consciousness, because I do think it's fundamental. Yes, you can have consciousness without embodying, because consciousness is the full thing, like everything. That's a great question because the answer to this question actually matters. Like it actually can, if we know even a hint of what is the answer to this question, it would tell us enormous amounts of very relevant information that will help us kind of understand what is the relationship between what we call consciousness to what we call physical matter. Great question. Random is saying, doesn't it fall under the idea I am there for I am? Kind of. It's the fact that anything is happening and all for you is all you need to know that consciousness is, because that's what consciousness is. Joe Hansby is saying, you said earlier that the observer effect isn't a real thing. Can you explain? Isn't that what the double slit experiment proves, that there is one? Yes, that's a huge and known misconception. No, that's not a thing. And I don't know why people keep repeating it at this point. But, and by the way, that is not to say that I think that whatever the observer is has no effect. I know it sounds confusing. It sounds like I'm saying there isn't, but there is. But no, I am not saying that I think that whatever the observer is has no effect on what the world is doing. In fact, I'm saying they are two different ways describing the same process, the same thing happening. But at least in the specific case of the double slit experiment, there's nothing in it that points or proves anything that has to do with observer influencing the experiment. What is true to say is that when there's a state present of the potential, but the potential of gaining access to information about the location of the particle in the universe, the state of what the particle is doing differs than its original seeming state of the superposition of the wave function. So I'm going to repeat it again. When there is no way in the universe to know where the particle, quote unquote, was, then it is this diffused field of what we call part of the wave function. If we create a situation in the lab that necessitates that now the universe can know, or someone in the universe can know about the location of the particle, in this case, by introducing a photon detector, they actually will tell you that. Now that wave function becomes in a different state in which it just is one particle. Which, by the way, is still super weird, but it is not the same as saying when a conscious agent knows that's what collapses the wave function. That's not what's happening. It's an idea that was grasped at many, many times, but that's not what it means. And because it's an apparatus, it's a mechanical apparatus that sits there. You put the photon detector in the room, pointing in the right direction. If it's off, which means now the universe is in a state in which there is no way to know, then it's a wave function. If you turn it on, even if it's present, it can be present but off. But if you turn it on, so now the universe contains a state in which you can know, then it becomes a particle. Or it appears to then be localized. Let's just put it that way. So there's something about locality that something about the potential to know that causes locality that I guess you can call collapse. But there's quite a few recent videos by physicists. What was the name of that girl, Nico? The one that did the through the looking glass, or?
Oh yeah, I forget her name.
But great.
She has an amazing channel.
Exactly. I highly recommend it. I'll find it in a moment and I'll post it here. But she recently made quite a few videos in the last few years, kind of debunking this whole idea that even anything collapses. She's saying, no, here's how we can explain it just in regular wave dynamics, just like regular optics. We're not even talking quantum here. Now, I don't know how much obviously she's a physicist. I'm not. So, what she's saying is more likely to be true. Let's just put it that way. But still, I should probably do my homework, and if I want to contend with that, I should probably have like an actual argument against it. But something currently tells me that that's not quite the right framework. But just so you know, that physicists do have this kind of now they're getting very disenchanted from all of these, extremely overly whimsical ideas when there's no need for them. And physicists are kind of getting a little tired of that. And then they're kind of saying, okay, it's almost like the emperor's new clothes, only with physics. It's like, hey, can we stop with the nonsense kind of thing? And then under that banner, a lot of new kind of more down to earth explanations come out. But of course, I also think that ultimately it's all a matter of fashion. So to some degree, and I do think that certain attitudes prevail at certain periods of time, even in things like physics. So once in a while, a bunch of physicists get on this hobby horse of saying, oh, enough with the nonsense. And then a bunch of the stuff that they come up with is more like shut up and calculate and things like this. And then they go into this other pattern in which they want to, again, become more whimsical and more kind of free and open. And then the ideas that flow out of physics become, again, a little bit more fluid. I actually think that some of that is going on as well, which isn't helping. but I do think that's a real thing. I did notice this, and kind of when you listen to a lot of physicists talk, you realize that there's their personal preference, but then there's the cultural preference as a whole, and I do mean just the culture of physics as it exists in that period. And that one is susceptible to these trends and fashions. I bet I never done it, and I don't know if anybody did, but I bet you if somebody's going to plot the kinds of theories that arise at a particular point in time, I bet you you're going to be able to tie it to some world events that have to do with this preference. Like, how do people prefer to see the world? Like, maybe, I don't know, like after the Second World War, people just wanted a little bit more kind of like peace and quiet in the 50s, right? Just wanted to live their lives after all this craziness. So maybe the kinds of ideas that would come out, even from the physics community, which is still part of larger society, would also have this kind of flavor of like, let's tone it down with how crazy things are. And then things are ramping up again, 80s, 70s, 80s, like crazy, blah, 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 blah. And then physics also, string theory, woo, crazy. It's like, I bet you there's a correlation there. Actually, that would be interesting to see what do you think about this, Nico? I have no proof or a ground to stand on by saying this, but I just have a very strong feeling this might be true.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are. I think we're going through that right now in physics, where people are calling out the fact that we haven't had major breakthroughs, and so I think, and Susskind even said like the economic pressures on students. You know, students are worried about getting a job and like having a career, and so no one wants to think in a risky way because your career's on the line, and it's so competitive to get a job in academia that it disincentivizes the crazy thinkers. And so I think there has to be this like economic prosperity that gives physicists a more liberal attitude with like, hey, I'm going to dedicate my career to going down this rabbit hole. And if enough people do that, you can end up with a breakthrough, right? And so I think there definitely is like a social economic slash political component to the creativity of physics.
That's a good, actually, simple analysis of this. You're right. It's as simple as the kinds of ideas that are encouraged in society undoubtedly also encouraged and discouraged in academic circles. And then if you have too wild of an idea in a period in which asks for more docile ideas, then you would not be rewarded. You would be punished, and you're not going to get a job, and you're not going to get a grant, and nobody's going to want to take you under their wing. So you will be disincentivized to think in these kind of ways. That's actually a really simple explanation. So, yeah. Is consciousness eternal? I would say yes. Few channels partake in lives of, but I usually get picked when random memberships are gifted. Well, you're a lucky fella. Trying to look for comments we can actually partake in. Yeah, with that console you describe, are you not able to type anything at all? Do you have a keyboard in front of you? Have you tried any form of inputs at all? Yeah, I spoke quite a bit about the console, but like I said before, unless I have some new information about it, I don't want to waste anybody's time. So you can just watch, the video of the console. All I had to say about it was basically there. Well, I'm glad to hear. We post new parkour videos. I wish I would still be practicing parkour. I haven't done it in years. Now I'm just gonna be jump from something and go, ugh. Um, no, the code is not. I don't know what. Yeah, the code is the code. No matter if you project on a mirror or anything like this. I've heard enough about Jason now, but not too in depth. Mm. Is there a way to make the laser cover the entire wall? Does that distort the code? No, you can absolutely make it the whole wall. It doesn't distort the code, and not at all. All right. So I think for today we will slowly adjourn. If you guys want to follow me across platforms, it's Danny Goller on Instagram and TikTok. It's Goller Danny, just swap them on X. It's LaserX83 on Twitch and Dango Thoughts on YouTube. Again, Twitch is LaserX83 and it's Dango Thoughts on YouTube. DANGO Thoughts. What else? If you guys want to follow me on Spotify, I have the new show called 0 to 1 with Danny Goller, from Earthbound Minds to Cosmic Citizens. Once again, it's 0 to 1 with Danny Goller, show that deals with the future of humanity. So go and check me out there. And if you guys want to check out all the stuff about the laser and the protocols, it's codeofreality.com, codeofreality.com. And if you guys want to share your experience with the lasers, please go to veilbreak.ai and look at other people's experiments, and you can share yours even anonymously. Veilbreak.ai, I put the link right now on YouTube. Check, get your merch on the YouTube. Helps the channel tremendously. We have great designs for Code of Reality and for Human First. And Human First is the design that denotes that we treat each other as humans first, before any political affiliation, religious beliefs, or any conviction you might have about the world. And I think it's pretty great, and it's a great design. So enjoy it and help the channel at the same time. Cosmo's trying to climb over water. And if you still want to donate to the film, we're at the end of the post-production now. It's going to be incredible film. You guys are really going to enjoy it. So if you guys still want to donate to it, go to Dango Thoughts, DANGO Thoughts, search for The Discovery, the trailer, and you can find the description, the GoFundMe page in the description. You can also just click on the link below this live right now on YouTube, and you'll find it's the second link. And if you donate over $1,000, you will automatically be added to a list of people who will all see the movie for the first time together as a world premiere with Q&A with us. It's going to be great. If not, we're going to make sure everybody sees the film. What else? Come join our incredible Discord community of like-minded people sharing these ideas. You can find the link to it on the YouTube page and in the link tree in the description of TikTok. Cosmo is trying to eat the fish. Come here. Place. Cosmo, place. Place. Down. The baby has a little fake pool and he's trying to fish the fish. What else? Where was I? Right. I think that's it. Come join Discord. It's going to be great. And I know I'm forgetting something. What is the thing that I'm forgetting? I don't know. Well, we'll talk about it tomorrow then. I want to acknowledge our incredible moderator, Guru. Much appreciated. Love you, brother. Thank you so much for always being here, always being on top of it on Discord and on YouTube. And thank you so much, Ebony, for gifting the 5 memberships. Ebony's our original gangster moderator and Core's mother, we call her on Discord. Much appreciate you. If you can't find the link or it doesn't work for you on Discord, please just use COR, like type it in on Discord, or Code of Reality, and you should be able to find it. And if you are interested in hearing about the retreat, that's what I was forgetting, that is going to be in February, make sure you email me to lasersimulationx@gmail.com, simulationx@gmail.com, and let me know that you're interested in the retreat, and we'll talk about it. We'll set up a call and we can talk about it. It's going to be pretty intimate, so there's not going to be too many spaces for this one, but we're going to do more. No worries. And man, I know I'm forgetting something, but I don't know what that is. You got it, brother. I'm so happy you're here, DJ. We'll be seeing you very, very soon. And whatever I forgot, we'll talk about it tomorrow, because I know I forgot something. But I really appreciate you, the audience, for always being here, coming, engaging, making this a really enjoyable experience. Oh, come join a membership program on YouTube. Thank you, Ebony, for gifting 5 memberships. But if you're not a member, come join the membership program, because we're going to have a members live coming up in probably in about 20 minutes or so. And this is for members only. There's no you gain access to it if you join as a member on YouTube on Dango Thoughts, DANGO Thoughts, and we dive much deeper into all kinds of topics. We talk much more in depth, and it's a lot more intimate and fun. And if you join from the second tier upwards on YouTube, make sure you email me also to lasersimulationx@gmail.com that you joined the second tier upwards, and I will send you an invite for a monthly Zoom call. I think that's it. So thank you, the audience. Thank you, the moderators. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Nico, I really appreciate you as always. John, Ocho, Deuce Wayne, I appreciate you guys. Yeah, I know this guy. We spoke. We'll talk about it tomorrow. And we can also talk about this in the members live. So I appreciate you guys. Have a good night. And I'll see the members in a moment. And I'll see the rest of you guys tomorrow. Ciao. Have a good night. Good night, everybody.